February 18th meeting of the Lane Transit District Board of Directors to order. So we're going to start with roll call. Michelle Weber, she's not going to be here tonight. Pete Knox here. Lawrence Green here. Heather Murphy here. Gino Grimaldi here. Ellie Sutherland here. Okay, so we're now going to go into public comment, and for those online, please use the raise the hand feature if you'd like to provide comment. Is there anyone signed up?
Not online.
Okay, and anyone in person?
No.
Okay, well then moving along. We're going to go to board reports, and board members are going to provide brief updates from the respective committees or partner agencies. And we'll start with the Lane Council of Governments. Pete Knox.
They will be meeting next Thursday.
Okay. And Metropolitan Policy Committee. Pete, you want to take that?
The only thing I'm going to refer is our fellow board member who also represents Springfield City Council, and I are representing our local Metropolitan County Planning Council for this next year on the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Council Consortium.
Wow. Okay, well, they're in good hands, people.
Yeah.
And the Lane Area Commission on Transportation, Heather?
Jameson attended this month's meeting. It was in person. They met on the 11th. The meeting was held at ODOT. Former Senator Lee Beyer provided insights into the current legislative session as it relates to ODOT. They heard from LTD staff. Was there anything specific that they presented, or
coordinated plan?
From our coordinated plan. Their planning staff was on hand to present. Oh, it's right there. Good one. This plan looks at mobility needs of our seniors and persons with disabilities throughout Lane County. Planning staff, along with LCOG staff, presented the purpose and methodology of the study. There were no questions or feedback from LANAC.
And, excuse me, the Strategic Planning Committee, Gino and Kelly?
No meeting.
No meeting. And the Bylaws Committee, I don't think we have, still waiting. Get some outlines. Okay, so next we're going to go to the CEO report. Jameson, Martin.
Good evening, board. I'm going to start off by introducing you to our Employee of the Month. I'll invite Eric Edwards to introduce George May.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. This gives me great pleasure to introduce Jordan May as LTD's February Employee of the Month. I'll just say a few words. He's brought some notes too, so he said, "Don't steal my thunder." Try to keep it short. Jordan's been here over 18 years now. Been a full-time instructor, our lone full-time instructor for over 3 years. I think it's 3 years and 8 days today. And in that time, he started as a general service worker, became a mechanic, a fleet mechanic, a journey level mechanic. And for 3 years, he's been our instructor. He's turned what has kind of been an up and down training program into what I would consider a top notch, maybe even a world-class training program. And we continue to get better, right? We've gone from, kind of intermittent training in a few months and kicking guys out on the floor to 9 months training, and through the iterations over the 3 years. This year will be a 14-month training program, currently 3 mechanics in that. We'll complete somewhere in July. He's also stood up and instructs a CDL pre-trip training that all of our instructors or all of our new operators go through. That's boosted CDL testing scores too. I mean, he's everywhere. He's on our safety committee. Really elevates the level of what the safety committee finds and talks about, not just in the fleet, but across the district. If we were given more space to write on this form, we'd probably find even more things. But I'll stop talking and give it over to Jordan. This is so well deserved. What you bring to the table, to the team, to the district, and to the community, just can't be matched. So appreciate everything. Thanks.
All right, well, first off, thank you. I am honored to be recognized. So I've actually worked at LTD since I was 19 years old. And I'm very proud of the service we provide to our community. I've worked my way through the different positions in the fleet department, and I've honestly enjoyed every single one of them. Like Eric said, I started as a general service worker, kind of worked my way through the ranks, and I truly enjoy it. And I think it's really helpful to have that experience in those different positions to help train the new and upcoming fleet team members. I take great pride in training, mentoring, and working alongside our team of operators and bus maintainers. We onboarded 9 new employees in fleet last year, a record for my time at LPD. So we've never onboarded that many people even close. So it's usually just a couple over the last few years, but 9 is a new record. This training could not have been accomplished without the help of the entire fleet team, all 51 of us. Our team is made up of equipment detail technicians, general service workers, a tire specialist, mechanics, inventory technicians, instructors, leads, supervisors, an admin assistant, planner, manager, and director. I am confident with the team we are building, we can troubleshoot and solve any challenges that come our way. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think we should go for the world class. So this is a letter and certificate on it. You can hang wherever you want. And this pen, you put it on anywhere you want that to. And this is something to have fun with. And this is my favorite part, but that is very, on the poster, his little guy is just standing right there. He's part of it too. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Moving into the monthly operations performance update, just like to call out a couple things that probably look familiar to you by now. In terms of ridership, fixed route and MX up 4.1% from December of the previous year. MX 1.4%, fixed route 6.1%. However, the rolling 12-month projections still show the decline that we've been seeing, about 2.2% on fixed route and 7.7% on MX. At the same time, we're seeing higher fares and passes. So we're studying to see what that means. One thing that we suspect is associated with that is we've done over 4,000 fare checks along MX each month. So we've been doing a good job of having a presence along MX. The challenge with MX and fare is that it has the characteristics of a rail system, except it doesn't have the person driving and the person walking the train checking the tickets. So we do that randomized for our public safety. And so we have a team that's looking for correlations on what that actually means and how that's impacting it. At the same time, we're going to be going into our long-range mobility plan study, which will look at the entire system and look at where our ridership is. So stay tuned for that. On the other side with mobility services, we're seeing a 2.6% increase on the rolling average. So that service tends to continue to increase. You'll recall in our board approved goals for this year, we are doing an analysis of that service to make sure that it's operating well from an efficiency standpoint. So we'll have that ready on time. I think that's due in third quarter of this year. The other piece I'd like to point out relates to absenteeism. We were having high levels of absenteeism the past few years. As we begin to add people to our roles, we're seeing that come down a bit. So it's decreased year over year from just over 18% to about 16.5%, and continues to get better in that area. So I'll open up to any questions related to the performance report that you may have.
Any questions?
Moving into the monthly department reports, I'm going to invite Wendy Frisbee and Mike Hirsch to give some highlights of their specific areas.
Got the important part, you go first.
You're all important.
James gave half my report, so.
Good evening, board. I'm Wendy Frisbee, the Chief Administrative Officer here at LTD. I want to talk a little bit about HR and then also marketing. So we did have a year in review. We'll be getting a lot more metrics coming up in April. They'll really talk about like the last year that we've had here at the organization. But just some quick numbers for you. So for the year of 2025, we hired 57 new employees. 29 of those were bus operators, which we learned more, quite a bit of the class that we have to do. 8 fleet workers, we talked about with Jordan, 6 public safety. And of the 47 that we hired, or of the 57, the 47 that we did bring on, they were ATU employees, so unionized employees. 10 of those were admin. And we also rehired 7 former employees that came back. 4 of those were actually operators. We love to see those returning employees coming back. Internally, we also had 16 promotions and 10 transfers during the year. So quite a bit of movement within the departments. Really just looking for that, the onboarding new experiences, retention. So these numbers are really kind of showing that some internal growth opportunities. Also, a few highlights for the year for the department. HR worked with finance to work on our pension. And so we were able to decrease our vesting schedule. And so we're now down to a 3-year, which is a great recruitment tool. And then also increased our contribution up to 13%. So now we are in line with a lot of other industries, which is really great. We also worked with our insurance carriers for a budget neutral process of a pilot for the GLP-1 medications, just to help with our health insurances there. So that's a pilot we're going to have for this next year, and we'll see how that goes. For marketing, very busy month for them always is December, but this year they focused on the updating the rider's guide. We updated service changes that were coming up in February, so a lot of their month was spent doing that. We had some community events. They have what's called Sounds of the Season, where we had outreach. They met with approximately 240 community members, and that had an outreach with them. We'll get a bigger report in March, but we also had the student bus pass program that they're really working to expand. We have a new employee that was a former operator, is now working with us, and so they've been doing a lot of public awareness around that program. And so we'll be getting some more numbers for that next month, but really exciting trend seeing there. And really overall, they just really work to balance the rider communication with brand development, community engagement, and just cost-effective performance for our marketing team. So it's a great team.
All right.
Good evening, board, Madam President. Thanks for your time tonight. Mike Hirsch, Deputy CEO. I do have a very abbreviated report because Wendy and Jameson definitely covered most of my points. But on good news, I know we all have been somewhat trepidatious about the transition in the coordinated care organization on our ride source. Happy to report that has happened with a seamless experience for the passengers. We're now gone from 2 CCOs to everything under Trillium, and as of February 1st, it's working smooth. We will be watching very closely as the billing comes in, and we make sure we're fully reimbursed for all the trips those CCOs cover. On the big bus side of the house, as has been reported, we're very excited to have 8 new bus operators in their 9-week training program. As of this morning, they're all progressing well. This is our first officially registered apprentice for the state of Oregon, so we're excited to have them in class and have our apprenticeship program off and running well. We had an internal promotion. Jason Kane was promoted to public safety supervisor. Always like to see internal promotion and internal career growth opportunity with that. The public service officer team is now at 22 with plans to hire 2 more. As Jameson reported, over 4,000 inspections last month for fair compliance. And in addition to that, we need to be aware of the incredible community service they provide with lost and found, answering customer questions. Customer service is not just checking for fares, but really a whole package for the community. Partnership with the facilities team, the fleet crane and fall protection in Bay 1 is well underway. That's a safety addition and crane addition to our fleet facilities for fall protection. The equipment from the contractor arrived a month ahead of schedule. Over the next several months, construction work will continue with the new equipment expected to be operating this spring. Happy to see such a safety improvement coming. I know Jordan May, that we just recognized, will be excited to launch training on that construction as it's completed. And finally, I think this is our last meeting if we stay on schedule with boardroom improvements. Significant progress is made in December and January with successful completion of the rough in for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And if you walked by today, you saw that the furniture's in place and taking shape. That project's on schedule and on budget, and that completes my report. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
One add-on friendly amendment to Mike's report is if you're interested in seeing the progress in the boardroom after the meeting, Joe McCormick has offered to open it up so you can walk in and check out the room. One other thing to add, kind of fresh off the press, is we are expecting, you'll recall, about a year and a half, maybe even a few years ago, we were awarded a $5.3 million grant from the Federal Highway Administration. That continues to go through federal review. We did get word from the Highway Administration that there should be some movement on that in the next few days. So we look forward to getting that across the finish line. That is the project where we are looking at doing a micro-mobility project over in the Bethel area that's tied to Bethel School District with the measurement of how does that kind of service impact scholastic performance. So we've been waiting for that to come out of the review tube, and we got notice today that it's looking like it's in really good shape, so stay tuned. With that, take any questions on the department.
I just had a question and a commendation, like 16 employees being promoted is great. That kind of upward mobility is really positive. I'm just curious, is that a normal thing that we see, or is that?
No, I mean, we haven't really tracked that the last few years, so we will look at trends as part of our bigger metrics that we're measuring, so we can actually add that as one of ours if we can go back that far. But just something very important, we've had that, shift in the organization, and so really it is about like that recruitment and retention, and like how do we help get our employees to that next level and opening up a lot more pathways for people. So it's very intentional now, I would say.
Congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. In front of you in your packet is the delegated authority report, the spreadsheet there. So if there's any questions on that, happy to stand for those. All right. So next we have something a little different. We have some of our friends from United Way. I invite you to, Aaron and Emily, to come to the front. We talked a lot about the ALICE report, which is the asset limited income constrained employees report that looks at families across the nation, really, across Union County, who are working but can't make ends meet. And we're using that report as part of our planning lens when we look at new services across the county, what those look like, how we talk about those, and how we express the value of putting those in place. So we wanted to invite the United Way in to walk the board through an exercise that demonstrates choices that families have to make, our very neighbors. So I'll turn it over.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Erin Barnhart. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with the United Way of Lane County. Hi, folks. My name is Emily Moore, and I'm the Director of Community Impact for United Way. I'll very briefly just set up a little bit of that background. I know the board is quite familiar with ALICE, but just to provide some quick context, and then we will move into a simulation, a practice to put yourself in the shoes of the folks in our communities who are what we call ALICE households. So we'll go to this next slide here and explain very briefly again what ALICE is. So ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. For thousands of folks in our communities, these are folks who are working hard, but still struggling to make ends meet. They make too much money to access public assistance, but not enough to get by. Alice households often have been struggling in the shadows, but we've actually been talking about them for many years. We just use different terms. We might have talked about, for example, the working poor, the invisible, the forgotten to describe, which is a very large community of folks across Lane County who, again, exist in that space between the federal poverty level and financial stability. It's important to keep in mind that Alice folks are everywhere. We all know folks who are Alice live in Alice households. They're neighbors, friends, family members, essential workers. And if part of our exercise is if you pause and think about your day, chances are you crossed paths with several folks who would qualify as an Alice household here in Lane County. Maybe when you dropped a child off at childcare, if you went out to get lunch, when you got gas for your car. Throughout the day, you're intersecting with folks who where wages are just not keeping up with the cost of living. And so it's a challenge for them. We'll move to the next one. Just very briefly, they face these impossible choices. And that's what we're going to do with this simulation is actually practice what that looks like when you make impossible choices between childcare and a heating bill, or buying healthy food for your family, or working reduced hours because you need to stay home with a child who's sick. Of course, we believe everyone in Lane County should be thriving, and so part of our work, as well as LTDs, of course, is to be supporting folks across Lane County so that they can. Move to the next one. So just to show you some numbers for Lane County, these numbers were calculated by an organization called United for Alice. It is a national research organization across the country in New Jersey who have put together a research-backed formula that has been also backed by more than 300 experts nationwide. And they calculate these numbers, I believe it's every 2 years. And so these are the most recent numbers we received from them, which are from 2023. So already it's not going to fully reflect the economic conditions of 25-26. But what you can see here is that here in Lane County, nearly 25,000 households were living in poverty in 2023. That's 15% of our total households. Another 45,000 households are what we consider to be the Alice households, again, between that federal poverty line and financial stability. So together, that's almost half. That's 43% of households in our community who struggle to get by. Combined, that's more than 70,000 households in communities across our county. Just very briefly want to look at some of the demographics. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Alice households span all ages, genders, races, and ethnicities. They live in urban, suburban, and rural areas across the county. But some groups experience it at disproportionate rates than others. So for example, you see some of the numbers there, how it impacts communities of color, where 55% of Black, 53% of Asian, and 47% of Hispanic households in Lane County fell below that Alice threshold. You'll also see that where the head of household is 65 or over, that number bumps from 43 to 50. Where the households are 25 and younger, it goes up to 77%. And where we have single female-headed households with children, 85% are falling below that Alice threshold. One last stat I want to show before we move, I guess actually there's two, I lied. We'll show the next one. Just wanted to show how it varies across the county. So 43% is the average for our entire community. And one of my fun stats about Lane County that I like to share is that we're nearly the size of Connecticut. So we're a large county with a large, broad array of communities and folks who live in our areas. So as you look across, you can see how those numbers shift, where in Marcola, it's only 22% of folks who fall below that Alice threshold. But if you look at the coast, you're going to see it's 50% and higher. And if you look at Oak Ridge, we're looking at 65%. Eugene Springfield is about 46%, which is, again, just slightly higher than that countywide average. So the last piece of background info I'll provide here is just talking a little bit about why this is happening. And so we'll look at this next slide here. And it comes down to our paychecks not adding up to the cost of living. So there's obviously several factors, including systemic barriers that keep communities within Lane County financially trapped, no matter how hard they work. But the crux really is that gap between expenses and wages. So what you're looking at here is the average, or make sure I get my numbers correct here. For a family of four, you're looking at the household survival budget, which again was calculated by United for Alice using numbers backed by experts. So the household survival budget is $88,560 in 2023. But when you look at the full-time wages of the most common jobs of the state, or two of those, a personal care aide and a stock worker, you see that this family with both adults working would bring in $78,260. So they're already just over $10,000 short of what it costs to get by. When we factor in the federal poverty level, which is at 30,000, the dilemma facing thousands of Alice families in our communities is pretty clear. If they aren't able to access programs that can help support them, or if they don't have or don't know about those programs that exist, then they're simply falling into that space where they need support but aren't getting it. Any questions about that before we jump into our simulation here? Yeah.
You've been doing the Alice report for many years. Have you seen any trends, major trends in the information?
We have, yeah. I would need to pull up that. I want to make sure I get the correct numbers for you. I know that in the most recent report, compared to 2021, I believe that the overall percentage actually went down slightly, but the percentage of folks in poverty went up. So the proportion of it slightly shifted. Again, I don't want to speak out without having the data in front of me. I'd be happy to share that after the meeting, but there are certainly trends that we see over time.
Say things are not getting better.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you. It's a good question. All right, so we're gonna pass out our boards here, and I have enough for everyone on the board, and I think I have enough probably to share some around the room if folks would like to participate. Yeah, and we have Smarties that we're going to give you, which basically serve as your credits that we're going to use for this simulation. If you can eat them at the end.
And at the end. Well, it'd be already.
We might have extras, folks who need more credit.
Don't answer, don't ask.
So I know we are, I should check on my time, how what's our both time for this session? Maybe we have still, so. When they were out of the room, I just, but. Yeah. It might be hard to balance the Smarties back there, so you might just want to visualize where you put them on your board. All right, so go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. All right, so we are going to do something called breaking the cycle. This is an interactive experience, and it's designed to step into the realities facing Alice families here in Lane County. Again, those households that are asset limited, income constrained, and employed. Again, folks who are working hard, often in multiple jobs, but can't afford that cost of living. I want to be super clear that this is a simulation and not a game. For many people in our community, these decisions that we're going to face today in this simulation are very real. They are not hypothetical. These are ongoing realities for folks. And with nearly half of people in our county living at or below this threshold, many of us, again, know someone, love someone, or may ourselves be navigating these challenges. I also want to acknowledge that we're talking about a really challenging topic. So always want to encourage folks to take care of yourselves, participate however it feels safe and good for you to participate. And while your voice and perspective matter, always want to make sure that people can step away or take breaks or do what they need to as you participate. So for this simulation, you are the Hart family. You live with your partner and you have 2 children, ages 3 and 9. You work 20 hours per week while completing an associate's degree, and your partner works 40 hours per week. You both earn Oregon's minimum wage above the federal poverty line, yet still struggling to make ends meet. So today we're going to simulate the choices that the Hart family makes, like many working families in our community. I'll have you start by taking your Smarties, of which you should have 15, and you can put them up in your credit bank in the top right corner. Once you have those all set up, you're going to see a household budget in front of you, and there are 3 columns: difficult, limited, and convenient. And it's going to show you what sort of some of the options are. So difficult means you're going to have a lot more challenges. You're going to experience a lot more difficulties. Limited might be a bit of a compromise, that you have most of what you need, but not all of what you need. Whereas convenient is going to be, if you could choose what you want and need for your family, that's where you would go. And I'm going to ask you to take your 15 credits and create a budget across these categories. You can spend 1, 2, or 3 credits based on your priorities, but you can't skip any of the categories. I'm gonna give you just a minute or two to think about how you would budget your 15 credits across your columns. What's that? Oh, you're short a Smartie? I'm so sorry.
That means that I'll have to eat the rest in this
Quality control issue with the Smarties Corporation.
Anyone else short Smartie, we should have to see.
All right, I'm gonna give you about 30 more seconds. I know this is fast, but we're gonna keep moving. So I'm gonna give you some variations to your budget. Folks feel like they have roughly a good budget to move forward? Close? All right. I'm gonna ask you to self-reflect on these first few questions, and then after the first scenario I'll give you a chance to debrief with one of your partners at your table. So for this first one, just think, self-reflect for yourself. Where did you invest the most? What did you prioritize and why? And then how did it feel to have to make these choices? Okay. We'll move on to the next step, unless anybody needs more time. I know it's a lot to take in. So you've done your best to balance your budget, and now you have an unexpected challenge arise. You have not had dental care in years, and severe pain sends you to the dentist. You learn you need emergency dental surgery. What you need to do now is remove 2 credits from your budget and rebalance your expenses. And again, you can't skip any categories. So removing 2 credits from your board, putting them back up in that credit bank, and figuring out how to rebalance what you have left.
Too long.
2, yeah. And for folks who don't have the board and anyone watching online, just to let you know, these categories are housing, healthcare, food, education, transportation, and utilities. And some of the differences we might be looking at, for example, healthcare, if you budget 3 credits, you have health insurance coverage for your entire family through your employer. If you budget 2, you might have coverage for 1 parent and the children, but not for one of the partners. And if you budget 1, then you have no health insurance coverage and you're paying out of pocket. And that's what it looks like for each one of these categories, where you make these choices of what you can afford. And when you're ready, feel free to turn to 1 or 2 of the folks next to you. And I'd love to have you discuss very briefly, where did you cut? What did you protect? And how did that feel, again, to have to make those decisions? And we'll take just about 2 to 3 minutes for that.
Anyone around the room want to know? Yes, Yes, I do. And sacrifice healthcare. No, I went down. And then I went. You got 3 and so went down here and I'm urgent that I left utilities because I can't imagine. And transportation. Yeah, I mean, maybe that was, no, you did the same thing, because I'm like, well, there's other feelings and I just can't imagine, maybe it's because yeah, my next would be. Yeah, I would have to wait until, because it's the one, not in Oregon,
Yeah.
maybe in SoCal, but.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that.
No, pretty straight down the line.
That's two.
On the twos.
We'll do about 30 more seconds.
Interesting, look at food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love this area, man, kids.
Right, yeah, I had to downgrade on that.
All right, so I'm gonna keep this moving. I apologize if this is moving fast, but we've got limited time, so we're doing a speed version. Okay, so you're here, this is your new budget, and now we have another challenge coming your way. You are laid off from your part-time job with no warning or severance, and this loss significantly reduces your household income. So now you need to remove 4 more credits from your budget and rebalance. And again, you take 4 off the board and shift between those 3 columns of where you can make those savings and still cover every line. Can't skip a category. Should now have a total of 6 up in your credit bank that are not available to you.
6?
Yeah.
You sure?
I know. It's very hard. All right, when you're ready, go ahead and work with your partners again. And again, what was hardest to cut this time? What no longer feels possible? And how did that change your sense of stability, this latest cut?
Oh. Email. Yeah. I don't know if that's what people do. Yeah, and then other something more still. Yeah. They were all of them dead. Yeah. So.
Folks want a minute or two to discuss that or move on to the third and final scenario? The good news is there's a little hope arriving in the third. We wouldn't be United Way if we didn't talk about solutions. All right, we'll go ahead and move to that third one. So the third one is community support appearing. While talking with a friend about your high utility bills, you learn about an assistance program that you qualify for. Add 2 credits back to your budget for the next month. So take 2 out of that credit bank you had up there, and you can now redistribute those somewhere else in your budget. You've just gotten 2 of those back.
Yeah.
When you're ready with your partners, again, talk about how did even a small amount of support change your stress, change your math, change your budget, and what becomes possible again with just even that little bit of extra support.
It becomes possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing, we do. Yeah. Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah.
But you stay in the public, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think there's no reason. Sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Say, I think we're living in a student, I'm from the areas where I'm begging, you're gonna be kids and he. That they said health insurance, that is the. Like, understanding, cable TV, or it's the young kids.
So, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not more.
I think I forgot, right here. Or two things. I'm seeing other winners, I think this is.
That'd be crazy.
all right, with our remaining minutes, I just want to take a moment to reflect on what we just tried. And again, we did it very quickly, but already it's just a moment to step into the shoes and imagine what this looks like when you have to make these really difficult choices. These are, excuse me, these are the trade-offs that we see many working families face across Lane County. These are not poor decision makers. These are people making impossible choices with limited resources. So you have to ask yourself questions like, if my family can only afford one meal a day, what might that mean for my children's ability to learn, my health and my mental well-being, my family's stress and stability? And thinking about some of those outcomes like difficulty concentrating at school and work, poor nutrition or long-term health issues that increase stress and anxiety or behavioral challenges that may emerge. The reason that we do this is not to solve poverty in less than 20 minutes. But rather to deepen our understanding of what hardworking families face and what they're navigating every single day in our communities here in Lane County. Again, choosing between your rent and your childcare, whether or not to have heat, whether or not to have health insurance, these aren't rare dilemmas. They're very common realities for folks in our community. And when basic needs are out of reach, breaking the cycle becomes extraordinarily difficult. And that is, of course, why the leadership of folks like LTD and other agencies in our communities really matters, that you understand what these folks are facing. And it's also why I appreciate that this scenario includes the community support aspect, because even just a little bit of support, a little more access to services, access to care, access to whatever it is families may need, which is also, again, where United Way is spending so much of our time and effort. It really does make such a big difference, especially for folks, given that they're on this razor's edge of stability so often. So even small changes, you may think, well, that's not going to make a huge difference. It really does. So some of the ways you can take action, and we'll just show one last slide here, and then I'll make sure I have time for questions. You can learn more about the realities facing ALICE and low-income households here in Lane County. We do have this data on our webpage. You can see there on the screen, unitedwaylane.org/ALICE. We also have some links there where you can go to the United for ALICE website, and they have a ton of information there, including some interactive pieces where you can change the factors and the demographics and the tools to learn more about what does it look like in other parts of the country? What does it look like in other parts of Oregon? In the interest of time, I skipped how counties compare, but county to county, it looks very different. But you can really dive even deeper to understand what are these challenges. Of course, support and partner with organizations who are working to close those gaps and help support families have that financial stability that's so important to their well-being. And then, of course, using your voice, your influence, and your networks to help build systems that lead to stability, and where stability then leads to opportunity. Our vision at United Way is to move Lane County from surviving to thriving, and we work closely with folks like LTD to make that happen. So we are honored to be here tonight, honored to go through this simulation with you. I want to also, again, close it with, I recognize we just went through a very serious topic very quickly. So please, again, take time to think through how that feels. If you have questions, I invite you to debrief with others, with family, with friends. And of course, we are always happy to continue the conversation and come back and continue a dialogue to talk about how together we're supporting ALICE families here in Lane County. Any questions for us?
A quick observation, when I was doing this exercise, I was doing it from the perspective that where I live, which is in the metro area.
Mm-hmm.
And if I start thinking particularly on transportation issues,
Yeah.
the difficulties are much more, they're greater as you go outside the metropolitan area.
Yeah, for folks who don't have a table, the transportation, you have an option here where it says must use public transportation or bike everywhere. That's very hard in certain parts of the county, especially our more rural, remote places. Yeah, thank you for that observation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for this time.
We thought it was important. You know, many of you around the table have been through this or similar exercises, simulations. But it really serves to bring home the importance of the work that we do and the work that we have to do across the county. In the discussion that we're in at the state level, that we'll be going into at the state level and locally, as we go through and look at our services and assess our services and understand the needs in communities across the county, what those look like, and what those quite frankly cost, and what the value is at the end of the day. So we're going to be having frank conversations as we walk through this planning process. And this is important to have in the lens of our mind. There are other simulations we could have done as well, but I think it drives home the lens that the transportation is a part of a potential part of the solution. We need to be looking at the outcomes that matter to our communities. And you've heard us say ridership isn't the only thing. It is a thing, don't get me wrong. It lets us know when we're in the right places. But also the amount of ridership that may come out of an Oak Ridge is going to look vastly different than the ridership that's between Springfield and Eugene. And the value that trip provides has a different level of importance. So stay tuned. With that, I'll conclude the CEO report.
Thank you, Jameson. That was sobering, but very useful. So now I'm going to turn it over to Pete Knox for the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Susan. So on page 24, you'll find the AIS and the monthly report, financial report. Well, not nearly as tasty as these little candies here, but very real dollars. Couple things I want to highlight. One, that this is halfway through the fiscal year on the reporting side here. In and we're basically on track, especially in the expense side, as our spending is in right where it should be, as far as how we're spending money. We also we're expecting some federal monies that actually probably already have come through. Another thing I want to report is that Jameson showed me a video that was produced that explains in a very layman's term how our budgeting process works and the why of the budgeting process. So it's up on our YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can access it through the website. And we had a video several years ago that did the same, and we refreshed it just to share with the public the process.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool video, so I encourage everybody to check it out. Even if you are super familiar with our process, it just it helps the layman understand it. With that, I'll turn it right back to you, Susan, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Pete?
I do have a question. I have a question in the on page 25 in the revenue under general fund and special services. Whoops, lost my page. Can you explain what that is and why? I mean, it's good, but it also looks like last year we were ahead at actual to date too by that. So I'm wondering, is that a budgeting issue or a timing issue? Or what is this? What is the special services?
So I just want to make sure I have the right number. So for special services, the 123,000, is that the one?
Yeah, 94% of the budget already.
Oh, yeah. So that's the Oregon Country Fair. And it always comes in early in the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a very special service. Way to catch that.
Any other questions? Thanks, Pete. So now we're gonna move to the consent agenda. And are there any items that board members would like to have removed for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we will take a roll call vote. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes.
Kelly? James? Lawrence?
Yeah.
Susan? Aye, okay, thank you, moving on. Okay, so now we're gonna move into board actions and back to you, Jameson.
Sure, I'd like to invite Michael Hirsch. And we'll talk about the battery electric buses to transfer LTD to Los Angeles County.
Good evening, again, Board. Mike Hirsch, Deputy CEO. The item before you is to authorize the general manager to transfer 19 2021 New Flyer battery electric buses from LTD to the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I want to reiterate, this is really a win-win for both agencies. When we asked the FTA, they did require that both boards, both LTD and LA Metro, get approval. LA board is scheduled to meet next week. So we will report what happens tonight with this board to LA. I would remind you that the entire fleet of 19 buses is under a factory recall from New Flyer. We are prohibited to charge them more than 75%, and they have to be stored outdoors. They will require a complete battery replacement at New Flyer's nickel, but that could be 18 to 24 months away. These buses, as they are today, cannot really do a full day of revenue service for LTD. The good news is when you buy a bus with federal money, you have a percentage of federal money and a percentage of local money. The local money has essentially been recouped from these. We get energy credits for these, and we anticipate we'll be receiving almost $2 million in energy credits. The federal interest stays with the bus. We're basically transferring debt to Los Angeles Metro. So each of the 19 buses will have federal interest. If LA, for some reason, was to not operate the buses to the end of their full useful life, they would own the Federal Transit Administration, the remaining federal interest. To put this in perspective, we have a little over 100 buses. Currently, we have a 43% spare ratio. That's a finding with the FTA. The FTA requires a 20% spare ratio. So this gets us very close to being regulatory compliant, gets us to 23% spare ratio. Los Angeles Metro has over 2,000 buses, 2,066 at the last count. They will be able to take these buses and under their own shops, they have much larger shops, they will likely do the repower themselves and seek a financial reimbursement from New Flyer. Point being, they're fully aware of the constraints with this bus. They're fully aware of the federal interest. Their board is also receiving attachment A and fully aware of what they're bringing forward. Los Angeles Metro will be required to pay the transport fees per bus. It's about $5,000 per bus. Their intention is to run these buses to the end of their useful life, and it helps them get their 2,800 buses they needed for the 2028 Olympics. And the spotlight will very soon be fully on them after what's happening in Italy, and really they need them as early as next year for the World Cup that's happening in Los Angeles. So it gets us close to our spare ratio. We've got our local dollars out of them. Los Angeles Metro is assuming the federal interest, has the ability to repower the buses, has the operating environment where they'll be able to use them for much more productive public transit for the public. I would ask that you support this as we, after you approve this, have to go to the FTA one more time and ask for final approval to execute the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Gino?
Could you explain how the energy credits work?
I'll have to get help from being new to Oregon. I'll have Pam explain that. And I did mention that with this, we still will have 11 buses in our active fleet, 11 battery buses. So we'll still be in the energy credit business. Thanks for a lifeline.
Yes, exactly. So there's two sets of energy credits that these buses helped us achieve. One of them we've already received, and that is directly from the IRS. That was $40,000 per bus, and then we also received about $40,000 per charging station. And that was a one-time, just apply for it, and we received that. So the total on that was about $950,000 that we received. The other one we're going to talk about in just a few minutes, and that is the ongoing energy credits that we received from the DEQ for generating clean air credits. So there are companies that need to buy our clean air credits because they cause clean air deficits. And so there's a market out there to be able to buy and sell these credits. And we generated quite a number of those. And so we will be getting almost $1.3 million from selling those credits. And that's the next thing on the agenda tonight, so.
Well, these credits are sold, we receive cash.
Yes, yeah, and the same thing with the $40,000 per bus. Got a check from the IRS, yeah.
Is there anyone besides LTD that are providing buses, or are we the only ones?
We have not heard specifically who's sending them, but I have experienced that for the Salt Lake Olympics, and nearly every large transit agency in the United States provided buses. It's not uncommon for a large event like that where you send them for a month and then you bring the buses back to your fleet. This will be a permanent transfer. It helps them achieve their goals for the Olympics, but then also furthers their zero emission. In California, every transit bus has to be zero emission by 2040.
To add to that, the American Public Transportation Association has stood up a mega event task force. And that's, those members are charged with helping to source different things for these big events. So that includes buses, that includes staffing, local housing. And for the games in Atlanta, the transit district sent buses down to support those games as well. So they do have a list of organizations that are transferring equipment and personnel to help with those games. We'd be happy to report back on that.
How did they get there?
How did the buses get?
They'll be trucked on a low boy, they're paying transport fees, and we on a low boy truck.
Any other questions?
I thought there were issues with these buses.
There are. And LA,
So what?
why would LA do it?
I'm struggling to understand.
Yeah, well, so the issues are the responsibility of the original manufacturer, New Flyer. It's just a long window to get the fixes installed. They need all of their batteries replaced, which on this bus is about 40 batteries per bus. LA, because of the size of their fleet, they can absorb that. They have shops that do nothing but rebuild buses, so they'll be able to do the work themselves. We would have to, that's why it's a good deal for them. They're going to have to absorb the time it takes to get the new batteries. Because of their operating environment and the number of routes, they can use these buses on short routes immediately. They're also going to change the charging technology. They're going to put on what's called a pantograph. So we're keeping all of our chargers. They'll charge the buses a different way.
Okay. Thank you.
And because the weather is not as cold, doesn't it make them last longer?
And they won't last longer, but they'll get more mileage per day
per charge
over the useful life of the bus.
Okay. Does sound like a good one for sure. Okay, can we have a motion to adopt resolution 2026-02-18-05?
To repeat. I should just say ditto, yeah. I move to adopt resolution number 2026-02-18-05, authorizing the transfer of 19 2021 New Flyer battery electric buses from LTD to the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Second? Thank you. Okay, let's vote. Lawrence?
Yeah.
Ellie?
Yes.
Jake? Gino?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Pete? Aye. And Susan? I vote aye also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
We should do a little video of them. It should. I'm just staying up here.
Yeah.
Do we feel like there will be any pushback in the community for selling buses?
Maybe, I think there'll be some questions. There'll be some questions over why. I think there'll be some questions on the kind of propulsion we'll be using moving forward. But I think this is a good business decision. And the technology, we still have 11, we'll still have 11. The technology will improve, and then as it does, becomes more operationally feasible, we'll continue to take a look at it. I anticipate much.
Good to be prepared for that.
You can introduce it next time.
Oh, okay, sorry. So are we gonna have a discussion or just a motion?
Then we'll have a discussion.
Okay,
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the STIF formula plan amendment. We have an opportunity once a biennium to submit an amendment to ODOT for our STIF plan. And there's two situations that you're allowed to do that, and they're highlighted in the AIS. One is we have more carry forward from our previous STIF biennium money than we had anticipated, or if revenues are exceeding the estimates, then we can amend our plan for additional revenue. So I think everybody has heard, enough in the news that we know that we're not dealing with additional revenue, but we do have additional carryover. So when we established our STIF budget for this biennium, we had to estimate the amount of cash carryover that we thought we would have. At that point in time, I had estimated the cash carryover based on fully expending the amounts that were in our budget for the last biennium. There were two particular areas that we were not able to spend our entire budget. One of them was for our fixed route buses. Because of the delay in getting our buses, we had anticipated using some of our STIF money as match for purchasing the buses, and the buses just didn't come in that biennium. And so we ended up with about $5.4 million left over from that needed to be carried over, which we did, and then to the budget for our next year. But it also left us with additional carryover cash. And the other area that we didn't spend our entire budget, we had estimated $8 million out of our last STIF budget that would help us get over the hump of hiring additional mechanics, hiring additional drivers and other operations staff to put more service on the road. And that also took a longer ramp up than we had anticipated. And we ended up with about $4.8 million left over from that part of our budget as well. So some of the other budget amounts actually went a little bit over budget, some were under budget. So in the end, what we ended up with was, instead of about $17 million that I thought we would be carrying over, we actually ended up with $8.7 million more than that. So we would like to, we talked internally and looked at the projects that we had in our current budget. We're not allowed to put new projects on there. That is a very lengthy and involved process to put a new project on our STIF budget. So you're not allowed to do that in the middle of the biennium. So of our projects we already have in our budget, we would like to add $237,000 back to our fixed route bus service. So we budgeted $4 million for this biennium to help pay for the additional staffing, additional costs to increase our fixed route bus service. Earlier in this year, one thing that you are allowed to do under the STIF rules is you kind of shift things around. So we did actually shift some money out of that particular line, and that was $237,000 to get us started on a project that will be working with the city of Eugene on some improvements in the River Road area. And we wanted to get started on that right away, and we didn't have any money in that line. So we did borrow so for that, so we're putting that money back. That's why, that 237,000 is there. The next line is we would like to add some additional money for fixed route vehicles. We already had money in our fixed route vehicles for our regular 40-foot buses. We were still working on establishing the funding sources for our 60-foot articulated buses. So we would like to put $3.2 million toward our articulated buses, which will go a long way toward finishing the funding for those buses. And we are getting ready to order those within the next month. We need to get the order in because, as we all know, takes many, many months before we get those. So this allows us to move forward with that procurement. And then on the next page, we have transit access safety improvements, $110,000. This is that same River Road project. We'd like to put a little bit more money toward that. And so that project then will have $347,000 total to be able to spend on that joint project. The next one is our fare management. We already had $500,000 in the budget for this one, but after looking at doing an analysis, we're still working on that analysis, but it became apparent that we had this in our community investment plan, but it was in a future year, but we would like to move that back and use some of this stiff money, $4.4 million, toward our fare management plan. That will allow us to get started sooner on the consultants that we need, start working harder on being able to put in place what our plan is going to be, bring it back to you so that you can work with us on that, and then hopefully start in earnest in this biennium. So there's quite a bit of it going toward that. And then the last little piece of this, we are allowed to have a contingency just in case any other amount that it runs over. And so we decided to put the rest of it into contingency. That makes it available for any of our other 30 projects that are unfunded with STIF money. So the total is $8,704,667, and we are asking for approval of this resolution to allow us to amend that plan.
Are there any questions, Gina?
Question about the articulated buses.
Yeah.
We've seen ridership decrease since COVID. It doesn't seem to be rebounding. Are we at a point where we should be looking at the mix of the fleet and perhaps not buying as many as the big articulated buses?
Two experts take that.
Great question. Yes. So we are looking at that fleet mix should be. The articulated buses are the MX buses. Some of those are pretty old, need to be replaced. In terms of the rest of the mix, we'll be solving that through the long range mobility plan and looking at what that mix really needs to look at.
So these are MX buses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see the need for the bigger buses.
Yeah, they're there.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. May I have a motion to adopt resolution 2026-02-18-06?
I move adoption of resolution number 2026-02-18-1-06, authorizing the CEO to submit an application seeking modification of the 25-27 STIF formula.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gina?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that you guys really anticipated in advance. When you read about and hear about other transit companies in the state, I'm feeling very grateful to the staff here, and your report really defined that very well. So thank you, Gina.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think you do, but.
You're welcome.
Oh, my goodness.
I've been there.
Okay, so now we're going to go to number 2026-02-18-07, authorizing the CEO to execute the sale of clean fuel program credits to ACT Fuel Inc.
Okay, so, as mentioned, we are requesting authorization to execute a sale of 7,625 clean fuel credits to ACT Fuel at a current market price of $166.25 per credit, resulting in a total transaction value of $1,267,656.25. So, as we brought our electric buses on, this is a program that Oregon has established, and I mentioned already that the purpose of the program is that we have companies that create greenhouse deficits, and we have clean energy that creates greenhouse credits. They established a market. This is all through the state of Oregon. It's a website that you have to register for. Only people who qualify as buyers and sellers are allowed to be on that website. We have been accumulating these credits since the beginning. So actually did a quick calculation. It's part of your packet. It looks like this page. And this shows you the credits that we've been accumulating. And those early years were based on, these are our charging structures. So the credits are generated whenever we charge. We submit the number of kilowatt hours to the state. They calculate a formula that turns those into credits, and then you can buy or sell those. And then you can see what the market rate has been with this graph. And we are currently about $160 per credit. Hasn't been that high since 2019. And so kudos to Amy's group, or the ones who report the credits. She sent me an email and said, "Hey Pam, you looked at the market value recently. Maybe we should, maybe it's time to sell those." So we did the research. We looked into using a broker, but decided that this is a fairly straightforward, simple sale. We're going to sell them all. And so we posted our credits on the website, posted them for 12 days, received 2 bids, and we chose the higher of the bids, which was the $166.25. So we have been in contact with the ACT Fuel. They are a brokerage firm, and they are very interested in buying our credits. We have validated them as they filled out all of our vendor information, and so we've checked them out to make sure that they are valid as a vendor. And we would like to have permission to sell our credits for $1.3 million.
Any questions? Okay, can we have a motion to adopt resolution 2026-02-18-07?
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-02-18-07, authorizing the CEO to enter into a clean fuel program credit sale agreement with ACT Fuel Incorporated, authorizing the sale of 7,625 Oregon Clean Fuel Program credits.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? Lawrence? Ellie? Gino?
Yes.
Heather? Aye. Pete?
Aye.
Susan? Aye. Great. Okay. Thank you, Pam. That was
Thank you.
very impressive, all those old numbers. Hey,
Budget time, so.
Yeah.
I was never going.
I think that this adjourns the regular meeting, and we're going to be moving into executive session.
This is
Yeah. Okay. The Lane Transit District Board of Directors will now enter an executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2D, which allows the board to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing board to carry on labor negotiations. Following the executive session, the board will not return to regular session and the board meeting will adjourn. Designated staff and representatives of the news media may remain in the room, and all other members of the public are asked to leave at this time. Okay.